At some point, many people begin searching for an answer, an insight that will finally make things clear, a realization that will finally resolve the confusion, a framework that will finally explain why they feel the way they do. And so the search begins. Books, podcasts, videos, new perspectives, new systems for understanding yourself and your life. And in some ways, this can seem like an intelligent and responsible thing to do. If something feels unsettled, it makes sense to understand why, to look for clarity, to finally reach a point where you figure things out and things click. And sometimes the search can feel genuinely promising. You encounter an idea that seems deeply accurate, a new way of understanding yourself, a framework that seems to make things seem clearer. And for a while, there can be a sense of relief as if you're finally moving closer to the answer you've been looking for. But then something familiar begins to happen. The uncertainty returns. That feeling of unsettledness returns. That sense that something isn't fully resolved yet returns. And so the search continues. Another book, another insight, another attempt to finally understand yourself clearly enough to feel settled. And over time, something subtle can begin to happen. The search itself starts becoming part of life, not just an occasional curiosity, but an ongoing orientation, where you're always looking, always trying to figure something out, always moving towards the next explanation that might finally bring clarity. And because each new insight can seem temporarily meaningful, the process reinforces itself. The next answer always seems close, like it's one more realization away, one more breakthrough away, one more understanding away. But eventually, a question starts to emerge. Why does the search never fully end? Why is it that with every answer, there's relief for but a short while, only for that sense of incompleteness, that sense of unsettledness to finally return again? Because if the process were actually addressing the underlying issue, there should be a point reached where the search is no longer necessary, where you arrive at a point where the effort to fully understand yourself reaches completion. But for many people, that point never clearly arrives. Instead, the search continues in different forms. Different teachers, different frameworks, different systems of interpretation, but often the same underlying movement. Trying to finally understand yourself enough so that uneasy feeling is finally resolved. And that raises an interesting possibility. What if this endless search for answers isn't simply driven by curiosity or growth, but also by the assumption that this unease needs to be resolved? Because if the unease is interpreted as evidence of something wrong, incomplete, or uncertain, then the search is a natural response. The next answer might finally resolve things. The next insight might finally make you feel settled. And so the search continues. And because moments of unease continue to appear from time to time, the process keeps restarting itself. Unease appears, and so the search continues. Then eventually, the unease returns again, and so the movement continues. Not necessarily because the right answer hasn't been found yet, but because the process keeps continually being renewed by the same interpretation. And over time, something subtle can begin to happen. Life begins to become organized around seeking clarity, seeking completion, seeking answers that will finally make the search unnecessary. But if the feeling of unease that's driving this search is recurring and not something one can solve away, then the search may not have a clear endpoint in the way it was imagined, which would explain why so many people find themselves stuck in an endless cycle of continually seeking. Not because they're incapable of understanding themselves, and not because learning or reflection are in any way misguided, but because the process itself is organized around trying to permanently resolve a feeling that continues to reappear and return. And this raises a very different kind of question. If the search itself keeps restarting, then what exactly has the search been trying to bring to an end? And this is something we'll definitely continue to explore together.